In 1966, a solar flare launches a fireball at the Earth, which ends up in a Minnesota forest park. Minutes later, a fireman called Dutch and his girlfriend go to contain the fire in the forest, and as soon as the job is done, the two celebrate with a romantic moment. However, the couple is interrupted when they see a small flame burning on the ground. The young woman decides to put it out, but as she approaches the flame, a snake-like creature made of fire attacks her and knocks her unconscious. Dutch runs to help his girlfriend, but she gets up, as if being controlled, and starts spreading fire all over the place. The fireman finds himself surrounded by flames and the entity inside the girl tries to attack him, forcing Dutch to flee. Years later, two firefighter friends, Jake and Dave, are in the same forest park, cutting down trees to control a fire in the area. After finishing their work, they return to their campsite when a small flame flies towards them and hides in Dave's backpack. Shortly afterwards, the pair of reporters, Heather and Billy, try to record a story for the newspaper, but are stopped by Jake. He tells them that the place has been cordoned off to avoid civilians and tells them to leave, but Billy doesn't give up and tries to ask Dave for help. In the middle of the conversation, the reporter notices that smoke is coming out of his backpack and the fireman tries to see what's happened. As he does so, a small flame comes out of the backpack and moves towards a piece of paper on the ground, which ends up under a trailer. Fearing that it might start a fire, Dave hurries to get a fire extinguisher and quickly puts it out. Even so, part of the flame continues to spread through a gas pipe, causing the trailer to explode completely. A huge fire starts, but before Dave can do anything, the fire takes the form of a snake and grabs him with its tail. Jake tries to help his friend, but it's too late and Dave is pulled into the fire and loses his life. Minutes later, the National Fire Agency sends its agent, Christina Andrews, to investigate what has happened. Heather takes the opportunity to interview her, but the agent tells her that the cause is still being analyzed and that 80% of the fire has already been controlled. Afterwards, Christina returns to the agency, without realizing that a mysterious guy is watching her and taking pictures of her with a camera. Although the fire has been brought under control, the fire snake invades the city and climbs onto the roof of a house, throwing fireballs all over the place. Later, Christina arrives at the office, where she meets her new boss, Agent Cook. He shows her a confidential file on the main suspect in these fires, revealing him to be Dutch, the same fireman from the incident in 1966 who was watching Christina in the forest. Cook believes him to be a dangerous criminal, suspected of causing several fires around the city. After passing on this information, the agent gives Christina the mission of collecting more evidence so that she can finally bring the suspect to justice. Far away, Jake is still tormented by the loss of his friend and is trying to distract himself in a bar, when the news once again talks about the forest fire. Just then, Dutch gets up from one of the tables and tells Jake that he knows what caused the trailer to explode. The guy asks if Jake saw anything unusual, and although he thinks it's absurd, he says he saw his friend being pulled by a monster made of fire. However, Dutch says that this creature is real and advises him to go back to the scene of the incident to get more answers. The next morning, Jake decides to put this to the test, and as he passes the place where Dave was eliminated, he notices a trail of burnt ground leading to a sewer. Shortly afterwards, Dutch shows up to talk to the young fireman, when he sees a car stopped in the middle of the road, with the driver taking pictures of it. Dutch then drives off, but before he does, he hands Jake a card with his contact details, telling him to call him if he finds out anything new. Meanwhile, in the car on the road are Cook and his colleague and Agent Kohler. The two suspect that Jake is being recruited by Dutch to cause more fires and decide to keep a closer eye on him. Shortly afterwards, Jake passes through the forest, where he finds Agent Christina analyzing yet another fire. He says he's a firefighter and the agent asks him to help her analyze a trail, as it's unlike anything she's ever seen. She then takes him to a manhole and shows strange marks on the walls and ceiling, as if the fire had somehow spread in a coordinated fashion. The traces follow all the way to the city sewer and Jake says he saw the same trail at the place where his friend was eliminated. He also reveals that he is investigating what caused all this, with the help of Dutch, an old fireman from the town. On hearing his name, Christina shows him the guy's file, and as soon as Jake confirms his identity, she asks where he is. Jake then shows her the card that Dutch gave him and the two agree to meet at her office, so that the fireman can give a statement about what he knows. As soon as the entire investigation team has left the scene, Heather and Billy show up and take the opportunity to continue their report. They head towards the manhole, but when Heather leans on it to straighten her shoes, she accidentally touches a small flame. Billy notices something strange and asks if her colleague is okay, but when she turns around, the reporter reveals that she is being controlled by the fiery serpent. Immediately afterwards, Heather fires a blast of fire from her eyes, which goes through Billy's body, breaking her in half. After this, the reporter walks over to an electric pole and the flame leaves her body, following a power cable. Hours later, Christina is informed about the bodies found of the reporters, and seeing that the situation is more serious than she imagined, she asks Cook for permission to bring Dutch in and question him. While the two decide what to do, Dutch goes into the forest, to the same place where he first saw the fire snake. The tragedy of that day still haunts him and he leaves a bouquet of flowers on the ground as a tribute to his late girlfriend. Afterwards, he returns to his farm and starts to build a fire, using some old equipment. At the same time, Christina arrives at the scene with Kohler and his men, but he tells her to wait in the car and the group sets off to capture the suspect, armed with various weapons. In the meantime, Dutch picks up a grenade launcher and fires a projectile containing a type of gas. After years of trying to develop a weapon to confront the fiery serpent, the old fireman managed to create a grenade, capable of putting out the fire instantly. However, just as he was about to carry out another test, Kohler and his agents burst in and, with guns drawn, order the man to surrender. Dutch obeys and drops the gun on the ground, but says he can't let go of the grenade, otherwise it will explode. He then asks to disarm it first and Kohler lets him do so, but then sends one of his men to handcuff him. The guy complies, but what none of them expected was that Dutch had activated the grenade, and in a few moments, it explodes. The gas leaves everyone stunned and the old fireman rushes away. As soon as he recovers from the surprise attack, the group shoots at Dutch, who manages to escape through the forest and finds his car stopped in the middle of the road. To his misfortune, just as he was about to start the car, Christina appears in the back seat and tells him to surrender. After that, Dutch is taken to the agency for interrogation, where he is observed by Cook through the camera. Before being interrogated, Jake appears and Christina starts asking questions, as she wants to cross-check their answers and see who is telling the truth. She asks Jake if he has any involvement with Dutch, the fires and the attacks on the reporters. The young firefighter is offended by these questions and claims that he didn't cause any crime. When it's Dutch's turn, he confirms Jake's innocence and says that just like what happened in the forest years ago, the young man also saw a creature made of fire. As expected, Christina finds this absurd, but Dutch advises her to find out for herself and ask her boss, Agent Cook. He also tells her to research the incident at the Los Alamos military base, as she'll find more answers there. Christina is intrigued and goes to see her boss to confirm this, but as soon as she leaves, Agent Cook sneaks into the interrogation room. It seems that he and Dutch are old acquaintances and have a brief conversation, but the subject remains a mystery and Dutch is released. On seeing him leave, Christina asks what's going on and Cook simply says he's authorized his departure and will keep him under surveillance. This only makes the agent more suspicious and she asks him about the incident in Los Alamos, but Cook just refuses, saying that it was a hallucination of Dutch. Christina isn't convinced, but soon changes the subject and tells his that the forensics report has arrived. According to the report, the reporters lost their lives to unusual causes, with Billy having her body split by some high-temperature instrument, while Heather was hit with flames from the inside out. Agent Cook seems to recognize this type of attack, but just glosses it over and tells Christina to keep investigating. Jake also decides to do so, as he returns to the manhole and tries to find more evidence of the cause of the fires. When he gets there, he sees a flame trailing through the power cables, and finding this strange, Jake begins to follow it. However, as he passes a bend, he is followed by a car, which is being driven by Agent Kohler. As soon as he is side by side with the fireman, Kohler suddenly throws a grenade into Jake's truck. Without a second thought, the fireman jumps into the road, seconds before his truck explodes. Frustrated to see that Jake is still alive, Kohler grabs a gun from inside the car and aims it at his target. Before he can pull the trigger, a police car appears on the road, with the sheriff informing the station about an accident on the road. The policeman finds Jake, who says he's fine and asks the sheriff to put out the fire in the truck before it spreads to the countryside. At the same moment, the flame from the power cables starts to travel down the electric pole and towards the truck. Finally, as the sheriff grabs a fire extinguisher and approaches to put out the fire, he is hit by a blast of fire. Just like Heather, he too is overcome by the serpent of fire, and with its power, he manages to grab hold of the truck and throws it towards Jake. The fireman dodges in time and runs off the road with the sheriff's car, which tries to follow him. However, Kohler takes out the sheriff with one shot and contacts Agent Cook to inform him of what happened. It is then revealed that they both know about the fire snake and Cook tells him to bring the sheriff's body to the agency. Far away, Jake goes to meet Dutch and demands an explanation for everything that has happened. The old fireman then reveals that these incidents were caused by the strange fire, the same one mentioned in the Bible. In this passage, it is said that Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's sons, tried to present God with a strange fire, using their incense burners. However, they didn't do the Lord's will and were punished for it by having their bodies possessed by flames from the inside out. Dutch believes that the biblical passage tells of a phenomenon caused by solar flares, which release living entities made of flames. This same strange fire arrived in 1966 in the forests of Minnesota and at the Los Alamos base 3 years ago. At this base, Dutch worked as a government agent and helped capture this creature, but one day it managed to break free and started attacking everyone on the installation. Dutch was against the idea of keeping the creature alive, and even against Cook's orders, he entered the facility, armed with the special gas grenade. Shortly afterwards, Dutch came across the creature and pulled the trigger, but the snake still resisted and managed to escape from the secret base. Eventually, he left the army because he realized that Cook didn't want to eliminate the creature, but rather use it as a weapon. This soon proves to be true when, far away, Agent Cook inspects the sheriff's body, and when he makes an opening, he finds the fire snake neutralized. He promptly places the creature in a special capsule and keeps it in a security case. Afterwards, he heads back to his car and meets Agent Kohler, who tells the two of them to return to the Los Alamos base and continue their research with the fire snake. However, Cook has other plans, and in a surprise attack, he strikes Kohler with a knife and leaves his body inside the trunk. Meanwhile, Dutch and Jake return to the farm, where the young fireman finds reports about a girl who lost her life in the woods in 1966. Dutch reveals that she was his girlfriend and the two were going to get married the following year, but it all ended when she was attacked by the fire snake. Since then, he has searched for ways to eliminate the creature and discovered that they need flammable fuel to survive. The two of them set about a plan to eliminate it, at the same time as Christina returns to the agency. As she passes the garage, she sees her boss's vehicle, with drops of blood dripping from the trunk. Using an iron bar, she manages to open the trunk and finds Kohler's lifeless body inside. Suspecting Cook of being responsible, she breaks into his office and, looking at the computer screen, finds an image of a fuel pumping station. But before she can look any further, she hears Agent Cook approaching and leaves the room. When the two meet, Christina sees him holding the briefcase, but decides to hide the fact that Kohler has been eliminated. She then says that she heard about the attack on Jake on the road and asks if the chief knows who might have done it. Agent Cook says he's not aware of it and rushes off, having been called back to Washington. With no doubt that Cook is involved in all these incidents, Christina sets off to find Dutch. Arriving at his farm, the agent meets Jake, who claims to have discovered the cause of the fires around the city. He talks about the fiery serpent, sent to Earth by solar flares, but Christina continues to find this story absurd. However, she sees a photo in Dutch's garage, showing the same pumping station she found on Cook's computer. She asks what it means and Dutch appears, saying it's the place where Cook intends to take the fire snake. As it is a fuel reservoir for the government, the old fireman believes that the agent has some secret plan and intends to use the place as a source of energy for the creature. After some thought, Dutch remembers another biblical passage, which talks about the destruction of Babylon by fire. He believes that Cook is planning to use the fiery serpent to destroy the city, using the fuel from the reservoir to cover the entire region in flames. However, it would be too risky for him to send the creature straight to the reservoir and they try to find out where Cook will be. Jake deduces that the agent is hiding in an old glass factory, as there is a feed pipe that goes straight to the reservoir. So, with no time to lose, the trio head to the factory and split up, with Jake going to close the pipe, while Dutch and Christina set off in search of Cook. As Jake had deduced, the two find the agent on site, holding the special gas grenade, and Christina pulls out her gun and tells him to surrender. However, Cook refuses, saying that the burning of the city will usher in a new world. In a moment of insanity, he claims that the fire snakes are actually angels sent from heaven to cleanse the earth of the world's impurities. Christina doesn't care and tells him to surrender, but when he pulls out a gun, she pulls the trigger and shoots him in the arm. Even though he's wounded, Cook tries to escape and Christina goes after him, but the villain's shot ends up hitting Dutch. She tries to help him, but the old fireman tells her to go after Cook before the whole town is destroyed. Just then, Jake hears the shots and runs to see what's happened, only to find Dutch seriously wounded. Before he takes his last breath, he asks Jake to help Christina, otherwise hundreds of people will be wiped out. He has to hurry, because Cook has just arrived at a warehouse with several barrels of gasoline and places the capsule on top of them. Shortly afterwards, the guy shoots the capsule and releases the fiery serpent, which begins to feed on the gasoline and rapidly increases in size. Shortly afterwards, Jake appears by surprise, and using a wrench, he knocks the man out with one blow. Christina also arrives on the scene and sees the fire snake, but it uses its body to explode the gasoline and tries to escape. Cook, however, asks the monster to come back as he says it can help him fulfill his supposed mission to clean up the planet. The creature accepts and pulls him to the top of the factory, then enters Cook's body. However, just as it did with Heather, when it finds the pipe, the fire snake eliminates Cook and flees towards the fuel tank. Now it's only a matter of time before the whole town goes up in flames, but Jake and Christina don't intend to give up. As soon as they recover Dutch's grenade launcher, the two set off for the reservoir, which is kept under surveillance by the American army. Once there, they try to explain the situation to the soldiers, but none of them believe them and forbid them entry. However, a strong explosion occurs in the pipeline and everyone rushes to contain the fire before it reaches the fuel tanks. On arriving at the scene, the soldiers see a creature emerge from the pipe and enter the fire truck. With its power, the fiery serpent controls the vehicle and speeds off towards one of the tanks, finally climbing to the top. The creature tries to melt the hull to absorb the fuel, and if it succeeds, the whole place will explode. Seeing that the two invaders were telling the truth, the army pledges to help and Christina orders everyone to control the fire, while she and Jake take care of the monster. To prevent the creature from reaching all the tanks, Jake sets up a plan to get the snake stuck in one of them and expel all the fuel. If this happens, the creature will have no energy and will disappear completely. Christina agrees and the two go to the car, where Jake collects a temperature reader and a fire suit. With that, he sets off towards a huge tap and starts pouring in the fuel until the tank runs completely dry. As expected, the fire snake is attracted to the liquid and sets out to attack Jake, but Christina seizes the chance and fires the gas grenade. After several shots, the snake gets weaker and weaker and its fire goes out completely. However, Jake notices a temperature signal on the scanner and discovers that a small trail of flame still remains on his suit. Before he can extinguish it, the flame leaps towards the fuel scattered on the ground, causing the fire serpent to resurface once again. Using its fiery tail, it tries to capture the fireman, but Christina stops it with another shot of gas. Jake manages to escape and turns the tap on another tank back on, with only a little fuel left inside. The creature is almost extinguished by the gas and tries to recharge with the remaining fuel in the tank. However, using her pistol, Christina shoots the tap, causing the fuel to explode and leaving the monster with no energy left. Unable to survive, the fiery serpent appears amidst the smoke, but it soon runs out and the threat is eliminated once and for all. After this difficult battle, Jake and Chris are reunited, having avenged Dutch and saved the city from a terrible end. However, in the far reaches of space, another solar flare is unleashed against the Earth, indicating that another fiery serpent will strike the planet again very soon. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.